Coming up, a guilty verdict in the Officer Ella French murder trial. An emotional end to a case that gripped Chicago for years. The Democratic convention is still months away, but Chicago police are planning now for protests and violence. And is the clock ticking for TikTok? The latest effort to ban the app. Plus, Barr rescues John Taffer. Our take on the State of the Union and sleep strategies for spring forward. This is the Fox 32 Chicago Week in Review.
The jury deliberated for just over 3 hours before finding 23-year-old Amonte Morgan guilty on all 3 counts. It was an emotional trial for Ella French's family, who hugged through tears in the courtroom tonight once they learned her killer would be behind bars. In addition to being found guilty for first-degree murder, Morgan was also found guilty of the attempted first-degree murder of officers Carlos Yanez and Joshua Blas, French's partners who were with her on that fateful night. Every seat in the courtroom was filled when the verdict was read. In attendance were dozens of Cook County Sheriff's deputies and Chicago police officers, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx, and the families of French and her partners. French was killed by Morgan in August of 2021 while conducting a traffic stop in Inglewood. The defense argued that body camera video, which was a focal point of the state's case, was too muffled and chaotic to make out. But the prosecution reviewed that video with the jury again today during closing arguments, walking them through it frame by frame, pointing out where they say Morgan reached for the gun. During the trial, jurors heard emotional testimony, including from French's mom and Officer Yanez, who miraculously survived after being shot several times. The family of French, Yanez, and Blas did not comment publicly on the verdict tonight, but we did hear from Kim Foxx, the president of the police union, and French's 8th District commander.
We are incredibly gratified by the jury's verdict today, but it is difficult to feel anything other than sadness about the senseless murder of a Chicago police officer killed in the line of duty, who laid her life on the line on behalf of the people of Cook County.
I know there's a lot of allegations by the defense. They couldn't have been more contrived and made up. They were almost fairy tale-ish in many ways. I'm glad the jury saw through that and did the right thing.
It's been a very trying week for the families of these members. It's been a very trying week for the Chicago Police Department, the city of Chicago, its residents. We all hurt through this incident, and this is one step closer.
Morgan's attorneys did not speak with us after the verdict was read, but his mom, who has defended her son throughout his trial, did. When Morgan was brought back into the courtroom tonight, he blew his mother a kiss before the verdict was read.
It was impossible for the jury to give my son a fair trial. And I am hurting right now, but I believe and I have full faith that my son will receive justice one day.
Now, the defendant's brother, Eric Morgan, was also there on the night of French's murder. He ran from the scene and took a plea deal last October. Meanwhile, a sentencing date for Amonte Morgan has not yet been set, but a court date for post-trial motions has. That'll take place on April 19th.
Get ready for more Kennedy chaos. There's a new wave of construction coming. Anthony's been talking with officials this morning. He joins us live. He's all bundled up out there. What do you got for us?
Okay, Natalie, here's the deal. If we use the marathon analogy, because we know that this is a marathon, not a sprint, IDOT just told me we're on about mile 8. Over the last year, and this project started last spring, they concentrated on the inbound lane. So for the next 6 or 8 months, they're going to be concentrating on the express lanes, the reversibles, and then next year, they're going to be concentrating on the outbound side. So this is all going to wrap up in fall of 25. At issue, bridge and deck rehab, joint repair, pavement patching, replacing all the light poles along the reversibles with new LED lighting. And this all goes into effect on Monday, March 11th is when we are going to lose those reversible lanes. Here's IDOT construction spokesman John Schumacher.
'Cause 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 'c
Okay, we're having trouble getting to John, but he was saying, I was asking her about the necessity for this project. His answer is, especially with the pavement patching, they're trying to put measures in place right now so that they can avoid having to make rolling lane closures and ramp closures every couple of years. Once this thing is done, again, once the marathon is finished, then they won't have to do that every couple of years. So, again, on Monday, we are losing the reversible lanes, which is actually going to have impact on both the inbound and outbound sides because the reversibles are 2 lanes. So in each direction, during each of those rush periods, we are going to be down 2 lanes. So it will cause a bit of a crunch. So obviously, be patient. And also, we asked him, what can drivers do to help out and beat team players? And his answer was, if you're in tight traffic, avoid unnecessary lane changes because those tend to have an accordion effect and slow everything down. So it is going to be a crunch. If you want to play your part, either find a different time to commute if possible with your job or avoid those unnecessary lane closures. We'll once again expect to lose those reversible lanes on March 11th.
There were no items pertaining to the shooting on tonight's agenda, but it was the subject of public comment for over an hour. Goodlow's family is now demanding that the names of the officers involved be released.
His name. Isaac Goodlow. Say his name. Isaac Goodlow.
Emotions were running high as the family of Isaac Goodlow demanded answers from officials in Carroll Stream.
You have, counsel, a hurricane, a hailstorm, a fire across America.
Goodlow was shot and killed when 6 officers entered his unit on February 3rd after his girlfriend called police following a domestic incident. While some of the specifics remain unclear, loved ones say Goodlow was asleep when police barged in. During the meeting, Goodlow's sister, Kenitha Barnes, addressed Police Chief Donald Cummings directly.
You need to be honest. Your boys messed up, you embarrassed, you ashamed. Deal with it.
The family met for a rally outside before the meeting started.
This is very important that their voice is heard. The pain that the mother is going through, the family is hurting, and we're demanding justice.
Police previously stated the officers involved have been placed on paid leave.
These officers should be held fully accountable for their actions.
The family is asking for their names to be made public.
And would like to plead that another agency outside of DuPage County come in and investigate.
The county's Metropolitan Emergency Response Investigations Task Force, or MERIT, is the independent agency leading this investigation. The family has alleged the video they were previously shown had more footage than what was released. On Monday, MERIT issued a press release stating that other than required redactions, the videos are continuous and have not been materially altered or edited. And we asked, but the police chief told me he was not able to comment tonight. The family has filed a lawsuit against the village and the officers involved. Meanwhile, this investigation continues.
Wheaton-Warrenville South High School officials want parents to know that safety is a priority here at the school after a student was severely beaten in a bathroom last week. 2 juveniles were scheduled for a criminal court hearing. Parents found out about the violence when they saw video posted on social media. It is disturbing, and Fox 32 has chosen not to broadcast it. It shows 2 boys hitting and kicking a boy who's already on the floor. He falls unconscious. Other students drag his limp body to a hallway. The school resource officer called for an ambulance. It happened last week. DuPage County authorities investigated and filed felony aggravated battery charges against 2 juveniles. Meanwhile, parents question how all this was handled.
I think after the parents got involved and the community got involved, they were, I think, a little more reactive to what happened. Unfortunately, that's the case in a lot of times when things like this happen. But I hope they can learn from this experience and make sure they move forward in the right direction.
From my adult perspective, I would have called 911 immediately because to me this looked like a kid who was in desperate need of, immediate medical attention.
School officials announced stricter policies for students in hallways and bathrooms. The injured student is recovering and was suspended for 10 days.
There will be two main areas where the tens of thousands of visitors will be: McCormick Place and, of course, United Center, where the main attractions will be happening. In charge of security, Chicago Police and the Secret Service.
On behalf of our city, I am immensely proud and thrilled to welcome this event back to our city, and I'm confident about its success.
Chicago will once again be the scene of a political convention in August. The Democratic National Convention will bring tens of thousands of people, so with that comes extra security. Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling says they are leaning into what they've learned, especially 12 years ago when thousands marched in protest through the city streets.
Many of our command staff members who are leading the DNC planning were also directly involved in the training and the preparation for the 2012 NATO summit.
The DNC is considered a national special security event, which gives the Secret Service a role in planning.
This behind-the-scene work looks at a wide array of potential threats, including developing security plans for items such as airspace security, civil disturbance and crowd management, hazmat response, and more.
Secret Service will be responsible for security inside the convention at the United Center and McCormick Place. Chicago Police will help keep the peace outside, where protests may erupt.
We want to make sure that we have control over the event, but we also want to make sure that people get to exercise their First Amendment rights.
Snelling says his officers are currently being trained on constitutional policing, a change from what the response was to the George Floyd protests back in 2020.
For those that aren't attending the DNC but still live, work, and play in the city, Superintendent Snelling wants you to know that every police district will still be patrolled. If you want to keep up to date on things like road closures when it comes closer to the Democratic National Convention in August, you can download the OEMC app.
Tonight, D.C. police not taking any chances, erecting fencing around the Capitol as a deeply divided nation hears from the president, whose State of the Union address drew praise and criticism from Democratic Congressman Bill Foster and Republican Darren LaHood. No issue more polarizing than immigration.
One of the real frustrations with today's Congress is that it appears as though the extreme right wing and, the great orange one sort of has Congress, has the Republican caucus by the throat.
LaHood argues it's Biden who's to blame for the massive influx of asylum seekers for ending the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy.
On day one, Joe Biden ripped it up. 3.5 years later, we've had 8.7 million people come across the border illegally.
Tonight, Joe Biden touted a robust and resilient economy, while poll after poll shows a majority of Americans aren't buying it. So why the disconnect?
Whether that's going out to dinner with your family, whether it's, again, filling up your minivan or your truck, everything has gone up in this country.
Foster points to a growing concern that artificial intelligence is going to take jobs away.
There's a real worry about what the job market in the future is going to be, even though today you can get a job almost anywhere.
Tonight, voters will also scrutinize Joe Biden's mental acuity and vigor, determining whether he's fit to serve as commander-in-chief.
Look at the accomplishment of Team Biden. The people that he appoints to run the country are doing a heck of a job.
I always say, would you want an 80-year-old cardiologist operate on you? Probably not.
I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, "Never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind." It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him.
So let me get your reaction. She did not endorse him.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think she would. And I think the way she put it, he's going to have to earn the vote of her supporters. I think it was a great way to put it. And quoting Thatcher is always I was just a little surprised she didn't get more. I think she ended it with a quote about women, that she didn't get more women's support more hourly. But great speech, great candidate, would have won by 18, but we're stuck in 2020 again.
What do you think, Tom?
I thought in order for
Donald Trump to win in November, and he's on that route right now. He's got the nomination. He's got to think about bringing people together. She's kind of set it up. It's a fastball down the middle. If he's going to have to reach out to the women's vote, despite the fact that he's already, 4 abortions up to 16 weeks or whatever it is. So he's at the norm right there. So on this particular situation, Nikki Haley looks like a very attractive vice presidential candidate.
So what's the reality of that? Because a lot of people have been talking about that even though she didn't do well in getting the votes that she needed, she seems to be well liked by a lot of women.
Well, she's good with that part of the party that he doesn't have.
Right.
Now, some of the PBS poll that came out a few weeks ago said that of the 40 or 30% of those individuals that aren't inclined to vote for Donald Trump in the Republican Party, 82% will still vote for him in November. So that's a big chunk, but she brings a lot more to the table. He's going to need a female. He's going to need an African-American, Hispanic. He's going to have to bridge those groups. She's a probable candidate. There's several others out there as well.
But is there too much
She won't
bad blood?
She won't take him.
No?
And I agree with everything Tom said on the reasons he should. He's going to take somebody weak. He's not going to take somebody like Mike Pence that's actually going to do the right thing when the moment arises. He'll take somebody weak that'll follow his orders. He's not going to make the same mistake twice. And Nikki Haley is not weak at all.
Well, on that particular point, the Vice President, Harris, is going to be the future candidate for the Democratic Party. They're going to have to pick somebody who's going to be able to take her on a debate stage. I don't think the president's going to debate at all Donald Trump. The vice presidential debates are really about the future, because the president, if Donald Trump wins, he's only serving 4 years. He's a lame duck in 18 months. So it's the VP race that everybody has to watch.
But
I think he's got to have a stronger candidate.
Trump can't see beyond his own shadow. He's never done anything for the Republican Party that's been
and that's
good
why
for
he lost.
That's why he lost, and that's why literally every race that we've run as Republicans since 16, including the general election 16 for the presidency, we've lost. We've gotten destroyed all across the country. There are state parties: Michigan disarray, Arizona disarray, Illinois Republican Party. We lost 2 congressional seats because of the Trump hangover. Trump's not capable of thinking politically about anything beyond his own candidacy in it himself.
Okay, let's move forward here and let's talk about Thursday night. The president will be delivering his State of the Union address. How critical, and I'm going to ask both of you this question, how critical, we'll start with you, Tom, is it what he says and the point that he tries to get across? Because this is going to be scrutinized down to the last letter.
Right. He lost the opportunity on the Super Bowl night to speak to 3/4 of the American people. On Thursday night, he's going to speak to everybody who's interested in this particular election, and probably another good percentage of those that are not, because he's going to be on all the television networks. It's huge for him, because the next time he speaks to an audience like this will be when he wins the Democratic nomination here in the city of Chicago, and he accepts that in his acceptance speech. So he's got this opportunity. He's not going to debate, so this is the big one for him. He's going to have to hit this one out of the ballpark. And
which is sad.
I don't know if he
The President
can.
of the United States will not, the 2 candidates will not debate, both because they're not really capable. Remember Trump's first debate? He blew that race in the first debate, and Biden simply can't. I mean, the expectations are so low for him. If he makes a major gaffe, I mean, even a speech gaffe, misstates a word, it's going to, he's at 37% right now.
Right.
And this is why everybody today is like, are we really stuck with this again?
So as a Republican, though, do you think what he says is going to matter?
For the
Republican
I don't think
Party,
the substance
people,
of
the Haley voters, the people, everyone's saying, can he get any of Haley's voters at all?
I think that's about 11% that will never go for Trump, and I think he maybe can get some of them. But
they sit out, though. They
sit out. But the reality, there might be a third party, but the reality is, it's all tribal right now, and I don't think he's going to get any of the Haley voters, but. It's really, to me, I'm just more sad that this is our choice.
This is the first time some 50 years, I think, where you have 2 candidates that everybody knows, everybody is aware of. You either like them or you dislike them. So in this particular race, some incident in the world is going to move people marginally over to the right or to the left, to the Democrats or the Republicans. You have to watch this thing unfold. Unfortunately, the president and his staff have not been good in responding, not reacting, responding to those world events. I think Donald Trump is better prepared staff-wise, but you have the dislikes are so high that everybody knows where they're going to end up. It's whether or not as the big guy here says, if Donald Trump can move a little bit towards the middle.
Lawmakers who support the bill say this isn't about TikTok dances and other viral content, but about safety and privacy. If signed into law, the bill wouldn't technically ban the popular social media platform, but it would remove it from American app stores if TikTok chooses not to break away from its owner.
The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted.
In a unanimous vote, the Committee on Energy and Commerce is advancing a bill that aims to protect Americans' user data. Its main target, TikTok.
The concern is the ownership of TikTok, namely by ByteDance.
Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy is spearheading the passage of the bill.
ByteDance is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party.
He shares an example of what TikTok pushed to devices in the hours leading up to the hearing, an alert asking users to call their lawmakers to avoid a shutdown.
Well, guess what? The people that ended up calling into our offices were minor children without the permission of their parents, and some of them called and basically said, "What is a congressman?"
He and other lawmakers say the app is capable of doing much more harm.
And imagine if it weren't this vote, it was election day or some other event. It could even be a natural disaster. It could be sowing chaos.
But not everyone is ready to stop scrolling. The company and some lawmakers feel that forcing the separation is government overreach and believe it could be challenged in the courts. A TikTok spokesperson said in part, the government is attempting to strip 170 million Americans of their constitutional right to free expression, adding this will damage millions of businesses, deny artists an audience, and destroy the livelihoods of countless creators across the country.
Now, still a ways to go for this to become a reality, but right now, sponsors of the bill are working to bring it to the House floor.
Coming up, John Tapper previews the latest season of Bar Rescue, the science behind James Bond's toys revealed, and the push to legalize psychedelic mushrooms in Illinois. They've directed the world's best-loved films. Now they reveal how movie magic is made.
If I've done my job right, you're left with interesting questions.
Jake Hamilton with a film school like no other.
Even though this is Barbie, which is this globally known brand, it feels just as personal to me as a filmmaker.
And action. Streaming now at Fox 32 on Fox Local. To get Fox Local on your smart TV, search Fox Local on these streaming platforms. Download and watch today.
Blockbuster reveals. Incredible costumes and show-stopping performances.
Bloodsucker, Dream Crusher, I love!
It's non-stop masked mania.
I'm taking everyone down.
TV's most cutthroat competition.
The trophy is mine! This queen has arrived at the Masked
It's
Singer!
time to SmackDown! Ow! The Masked Singer, all new Wednesdays on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.
It's a jungle out there. Well, maybe not yet, but spring is here. Once it starts to warm up a little bit, things are going to be growing very fast. And your yard and your garden could become a jungle. So we've got some tips from Chalet Home and Garden here to help you. If you don't have that green thumb, Luis Mata is here to help you with that. He's got a couple of green thumbs. Thanks for being with us again this year. We were back with you last year. So, and you've got about 20 years experience in this, so you're the authority. First, I want to talk a little bit about lawns. If people are starting to think about planting some lawn or throwing out some lawn seed, is it too early? I know we can just get like 5 inches of snow on average in March.
Yeah, so it's a great time to start planting, but I wouldn't really start putting any seed down until the beginning of April.
Okay.
We've got a great seed selection here, a Chalet private label that's got a lot of great desirable seed blends in it. And it's also a great time to start thinking about fertilizer. That could go down any time now.
And you got to be careful about what type of fertilizer you use this time of the year?
Right. If your lawn needs a lot of seeding and you're going to be putting a lot of seed down, I'd recommend an all-organic, spring fertilization. But if you're not doing a lot of seeding, it'd be good to do some weed and feed. This has a weed pre-emergent product in it that'll keep crabgrass from coming up or those weeds that you usually battle through the summer.
Okay, once you get around to putting out the seed, how do you keep birds from coming and destroying all your work?
Put your seed down and cover it with a thin layer of compost. We use the chalet compost and just a thin layer to hide that seed from the birds.
And you don't recommend aerating in spring, you recommend aerating in fall, your lawns, right?
Right. The lawns are doing the most root development in the fall, so that's the best time to aerate. If you aerate now, you're opening up, bringing soil to the surface and open up those holes, which could open up opportunity for weed pressure.
Okay, so we talked about fertilizer for your lawns, but you also want to mention fertilize other parts of your yard, right?
I think it's overlooked quite a bit. The shrubs are overlooked, and it's important to put down a fertilizer. An all-purpose fertilizer for gardens is good. We've got this Dr. Earth product here. It'll make a big difference with the plant vigor and even promoting some bloom.
And last but not least, really quickly, bulbs. Still too early for bulbs?
It's still too early to put them in. We've got some dahlia tubers here that'll go in, in May, but it's a great time to start planning for it.
Okay, and you guys wanted to plug the fact that you've got a special going on right now?
Yeah, we've got our Step into Spring special starting tomorrow, and all our garden products are 20% off.
All right, I feel my thumb is turning green already. Thanks, Luis, for joining us.
No problem. Thanks.
If you've had to fill up your car lately, you probably already know this, but gas prices on the rise. Sometimes happens this time of the year, but pretty sharp increases in some places. Take a look at the latest numbers. The average gallon of regular now $3.38. If you take in all 50 states, that's about a dime more than it was a week ago and about a quarter more than it was a month ago. Worst offenders in terms of the states, well, usual suspects, California, about $1.50 more than the national average. Hawaii, Washington, Nevada, other western states also pretty high. That's in part because the price of oil has gone up. That, however, according to oil analyst Andy Lipow, is not because of a lack of U.S. production.
In spite of the Biden administration policies that seek to limit fossil fuel production, we've seen the oil industry rise to the occasion and now is producing a record 13.3 million barrels a day of crude oil.
Indeed, in November of last year, we set an all-time record for U.S. oil production, 13.319 million barrels per day. That's more than Saudi Arabia produces, more than the Russians produce. We also had a similar number in December. A lot is made sometimes of President Biden's war on oil. One analyst says, if he's fighting a war on oil, he's doing about as well as the Russians in Ukraine. He's losing.
You'll get extra daylight next week, but we're giving up sleep to get it.
That means you could be driving drowsy come Monday morning. Molly Hart from AAA is with us. And Molly, how big of an issue is this first week of the time change for drivers, especially come this Monday?
You know, it's a very big issue because people don't necessarily perceive how tired they are. And so with this time change, people might have impaired judgment in regards to how they're driving, drifting lanes. So it's a time and it's a wake-up call to get enough sleep so you drive safely.
You know, at times we've heard that driving drowsy is really like drunk driving. So what happens if you do drive and you're sleepy?
What happens is, number one, things that you need to take note of, which means you might need more sleep, is if you're drifting lanes, if you don't remember the last couple miles that you have driven, those are indications of the fact that you haven't gotten enough sleep. And the worst time for people to be driving that may cause fatalities is between 12 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Just when we're going to work as well. Well, you know, a lot of people, they might think they'll just load up on some coffee or other caffeine. Does that actually help? And what's the best ways to not drive drowsy?
To not drive drowsy, there's a few things you can do. One, get enough sleep. There's also nothing wrong with a power nap. Also, just listen to your body. Again, people do not recognize how tired they are or their self-perception of them thinking they're not tired when they actually are. And that's a risk to themselves and to other drivers.
Molly, how can we protect ourselves? As Brian said, we go in early on Monday morning, and we've got a lot of viewers who travel into work during that time frame as well, that's midnight to 6 a.m. time frame. What can we do to watch out for ourselves?
You know, first of all, there's nothing like a little bit of fresh air coming in, so maybe you roll down your windows just a bit to keep you alert. But again, I have to emphasize getting enough sleep. Of course, you know, coffee may help a bit, but it's the sleep that's the most important when we're driving and with this time change.
Now, Molly, would it help to maybe start getting that extra sleep a couple of days before Monday to just kind of get your body prepared for losing that hour Sunday night? Would that help at all?
There's no harm in doing that. Absolutely. What's happening too is people are used to driving at a certain time. Their body is adjusted to that time. And now we're going to be off the hour. Their body and their mind might not be as alert. And so it's really important to get that sleep in.
The last case was back in 2019, pre-pandemic. Now the Chicago Department of Public Health wants you to retrace your steps from last Tuesday. That's when an infected patient with measles ventured out on a CTA bus to a hospital.
Something that we should be concerned about, but it's not something that we should panic over.
Measles, says emergency room Dr. Nicholas Cozy with Rush, is more contagious than COVID. Now is the time, he says, to see if you were vaccinated, normally before the age of 6.
So when you were a kid, when I was a kid, having 2 doses of vaccination, you're 94% covered.
The Chicago Department of Public Health says they were notified of the case Thursday, but the patient's infectious period ended Wednesday. Possible exposure locations where the patient traveled on February 27th include Swedish Hospital on California Avenue between 8:30 a.m. and noon, and the number 92 Foster bus between 9:15 and 11:30 in the morning. Just last month, an Indiana resident with measles reportedly visited 3 Chicago hospitals, but there's no link between these 2 cases. Dr. Cozy says he's not surprised to see this case pop up due to ever-decreasing vaccination rates and global migration.
I think it was just inevitable, and it was just time that it was going to eventually happen.
He says because it was eradicated in 2000 in the U.S., most doctors have never seen it. And he says depending on your skin tone, it will look different. Unless doctors are looking out for it, they will not diagnose it. Here's the symptoms to watch out for.
A specific rash, it's raised, it's elevated on the skin, sometimes can be associated with a cough, a runny nose, in addition to red eyes. Follows a characteristic pattern that starts on the middle of your body, expands outward in terms of the rash.
So if you think you were possibly exposed to the measles sometime last Tuesday, go ahead and call your primary care physician before going in to possibly help limit exposing others. That infected patient, by the way, we're told, is recovering well at home.
First Oregon, then Colorado, and soon maybe Illinois could legalize one psychedelic as a treatment option for people struggling with their mental health. But there will be one big difference. Terrence is back to explain.
Yeah, Dawn, unlike in those other 2 states you mentioned, here in Illinois, the psychedelic would have to be consumed under supervision. State Senator Rachel Ventura introduced a new bill that would legalize psilocybin mushrooms to treat PTSD, depression, and other conditions that can be resistant to other medications. She's been working with law enforcement organizations on the bill. She says the Illinois Sheriff's Association is hesitant and has questions. Her colleagues do too. She says many want to learn more about how the substance works. So she's directing them to the numerous medical studies about the benefits.
Psychedelics have gotten some bad PR. But to be honest, the FDA's breakthrough therapy on PTSD has only been given to 4 substances, and all 4 of them are psychedelics. So we want to make sure that people are feeling safe about this, and they're not thinking that this is just, the black market drug that's out there. But this is really plant medicine, and remove that stigma.
Under the proposal, people would only be able to use the mushrooms at a licensed healing center with a licensed healthcare professional supervising. The senator says not only would this help people suffering from mental health conditions, but it will bring money to the state as well.
There'd be a 15% tax on this. It's not going to be the billion-dollar industry that cannabis. Some of that tax is to pay for the licensing and the testing and the staff that has to do the licensing. This isn't really a revenue generator for the future. This is about really addressing the mental health crisis, which we spend millions of dollars on at a state level.
The senator clarified if the bill becomes law, it would still be illegal to use mushrooms outside of those healing centers I mentioned. The bill is currently scheduled to be heard in the executive committee in the next few weeks or so.
Expect to open your wallet a little bit wider this year when you go food shopping.
Overall, in 2024, according to the USDA, food prices
are predicted to increase by about 1.3%.
Financial educator Jamie Millant says while some of the biggest jumps will be on restaurant menus, there are certain grocery store items that will also come with some sticker shock.
Beef and veal prices are predicted to increase by about 5.8%, and the prices for fats and oils are predicted to increase by about 3.6%. Fresh fruit prices are predicted to increase by about 1%.
Really, the pressure's on for higher beef prices. We're producing less beef because of drought, high costs, things like that.
Dr. David Anderson is a livestock economist at Texas A&M University. He says ranchers have been cutting their herds because of those factors, and that ground beef in particular is expected to go up in cost as a result.
And that's the biggest item in terms of volume that us Americans consume of beef is ground beef. Everybody loves a good hamburger, and so, you know, if you think about it in simple terms, if all of us customers continue to show up at the store and buy the product, there's not a lot of incentive for a price cut or a lower price.
With those prices going up, some consumers are making changes to their shopping habits.
The most common ways we see people adjusting have been things like buying cheaper brands, cooking more meals at home, switching to less expensive items, so maybe switching away from things like red meat or seafood.
She notes with the higher food costs, many food banks and pantries are also seeing an uptick in those needing help.
When you can't make your food dollar stretch far enough, government support is there for that reason as well.
So what can you do to find some savings?
There's all kinds of things people can do with paying attention to planning your meals. The average U.S. family of 4 wastes about $1,500 a year in uneaten food. Reducing food waste, it's can make a significant impact in your budget as well.
She also recommends things like meal planning to make sure you're only buying what you absolutely need for the week.
What I'm trying to get people to do is, while you're doing your meal planning, do your grocery planning at the same time. So there's a page to do your meal planning, but then you plan what groceries you need to meet the commitments for that meal plan for the week. And then in addition, it's just to focus on using the ingredients that you have on hand and in your pantry to help reduce your costs.
Millant recently developed a booklet to help consumers not only plan their meals, but also track how much money they're spending on food. Another way to cut costs, make more of your meals at home.
We've really seen some evidence of cooking at home becoming relatively cheaper than eating out. And that's something where I think we may continue to see that trend.
Peterson is serving a life sentence for the 2012 conviction on charges that he murdered his third wife, Kathleen Savio, and he is the prime suspect in the disappearance of his fourth wife, Stacy Peterson, whose body has never been found. But Peterson is now asking to overturn that conviction, arguing incompetence by his attorney at the time, Joel Brodsky, because Brodsky would not allow him to testify in his own defense. Legal analyst Karen Conti says that's a tough sell.
I don't think he has a chance at all. Ineffective assistance of counsel is a really hard thing to prove. You have to prove that your lawyer is completely incompetent, but you also have to prove that had he not been incompetent, the decision would be completely different.
Also today, a judge agreed to a request by Will County State's Attorney James Glasgow and appointed a special prosecutor to investigate whether Brodsky violated a 2022 gag order preventing him from talking about his involvement in the case. Brodsky recently spoke to News Nation as part of their jailhouse interview with Peterson, and now Brodsky is being accused of committing indirect contempt of court.
The special prosecutor was appointed to talk to Brodsky and to investigate whether or not he violated a gag order, and that is disclosing some things that Drew Peterson said. And that's necessary because Brodsky's going to be a witness in the case against Drew Peterson, and I think the judge just wanted to make sure this was all done appropriately.
In a brief phone call, Brodsky told me that he did not violate his attorney-client privilege with Drew Peterson. The case will be back in court April 1st, and there's a chance Peterson may be in attendance at that time.
Coming up, the science behind James Bond's toys on display here in Chicago. Jack Black talks Kung Fu Panda 4, and we end the week with a little magic.
My name is Brian Jackson. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. This is my house where my family still lives to this day. This was my school, Ridge South High. I had my first job here at this library. My career as a journalist took me from coast to coast. But coming back to my hometown of Chicago, was a dream come true. My name is Brian Jackson. I was raised in Matson, Illinois, and this is Fox 32 Chicago.
I can make noodles fry.
Frying noodles?
Yeah.
The kids are back. Let's get cooking in the kitchen.
MasterChef Junior.
With a new judge.
This looks better than half the dishes that come out of my dad's restaurant.
Burn. You can watch anytime. Their talent
Oh my gosh,
will blow you away.
This was an expensive t-shirt.
who cares?
MasterChef Junior, all new. Monday on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.
If I was losing $10,000 a month, I wouldn't be playing pool, man.
Sacking bad bar service.
Whoa.
You guys got flies in your bottles.
When do I have you say that's not gonna work?
And drafting a team for when the going gets tough.
I want to push us and see where we break.
It's time to win big.
He's definitely not somebody you want to mess with, but he's always working his hardest to save restaurants all over the country.
An all-new season of Bar Rescue hosted by Jon Taffer just came out, and Jon is joining us this morning from Vegas to tell us all about it. So how's the season going so far?
Well, Natalie Bryan, I'm a sweetheart. What are you talking about? you know, every failing business can break your wallet, but it can also break your family. And this year in Bar Rescue, boy, that comes out in spades. I mean, think about it. A 50-year-old man living in his parents' basement blew their entire retirement account. Now their house is on the line too. And I show up and I have 4 days to help this person. You know, Natalie, Brian, it's not about a bar anymore. It's much bigger than that. It's about saving a family.
Right.
It's about saving their house, saving their retirement. I mean, literally their lives are on the line. So, and I'm there for 4 days. So you bet I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to be very aggressive because I've got to change their direction of their entire life. And, you know, with many of them, it's not a failing business, it's a failing owner. And I can build them the Taj Mahal, guys, and they'll still fail. I got to change them. And that's where the challenge comes in. I can build bars all day. Changing people is where it gets tough.
Right. So give us an idea, what are some of the biggest changes you've had to make with some of these bars you've kind of dealt with this season?
Yeah, you know, some of it is more interpersonal, if you will, than just business. So I've had a lot of bars that are a disaster. We've had rat-infested bars, filth, disgust, the kind of things that you guys know I go crazy over, because that's just not bad business. That's irresponsible. We see some of that, but we see a lot of wives disgusted with their husbands and vice versa. We see issues with partners. We see how the businesses are really impacting people's lives and how by fixing the business, I can bring them together again. And it's really, really powerful. My crew sometimes calls me Dr. John because the show winds up so much more about their personal struggle and redirecting them and then giving them a business that they can flourish in. It's a challenge, guys, especially in 4 days. This year, you're going to see some tears coming down my face a few times. It is a crazy emotional season.
All right, well, you've hooked us. Jon Taffer, Season 9 of Bar Rescue is streaming now. Thank you.
It's the intrigue, the espionage, the sexiness of James Bond movies that's going to bring the crowds here for 007 Science, Inventing the World of James Bond. Dr. Voula Saradakis is the curator of this. You know everything about all the movies, and you have a lot of it here.
Yeah, we do. And in this section, we have many of the vehicles. We have 12 vehicles and over 90 objects and gadgets, and they're from some of the more iconic Bond films. So, for example, we have this submarine car that was featured in Spy Who Loved Me. That comes right out of the ocean. All the people on the beach are looking at it and shocked and in surprise. So it's called Wet Nelly, very iconic from that movie.
I think that when people see it, they might not remember the movie, but you have the movie playing behind, which is so great.
Yes, we do have clips throughout the exhibit next to the objects from which they're featured that put those objects in context and people can see how they were used. And so, for example, here we have the Jaguar used by the bad guy in Die Another Day. And beautiful color, beautiful vehicle. It was on the ice for the particular scene in which it was used by the bad guy, and we have the clip, and you can see that.
Oh, cool. And it's a gorgeous vehicle.
It
now,
is.
the next one over looks like it was probably like envisioned as where science would go.
Yeah, so this is called a Parahawk, and it is both, it comes down with a parachute, and then you can use it like a snowmobile. And it was used in the movie The World Is Not Enough, first by the villains, and then James Bond winds up using one as well.
Awesome. Well, the movie part is great, but you also focus on the science of the things that were invented for James Bond.
Yeah, absolutely. This exhibit, it's all about highlighting the incredible science and technology behind the James Bond movies. And it's just an amazing collection of 12 vehicles, over 90 objects and gadgets that were used in these action sequences, the physics and the chemistry and biology to create these spectacular stunts and movies.
Wonderful when fiction becomes true. James Bond, the exhibit at the Museum of Science and Industry starts on March 007.
Well, millions of Americans use artificial sweeteners to try to control their sugar intake and help them lose weight. But there may now be another reason for concern. There's a new study that finds people who reported drinking 2 liters or more per week of artificially sweetened beverages, that's the equivalent of a medium-sized fast food diet soda a day, had a 20% higher risk of a specific type of heart issue. So joining us now to discuss is Dr. Laurel Sherian, a neurologist and director of the Comprehensive Stroke Center at Rush Medical Center. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
These drinks are so common. I think I looked it up and it was like 1.41. I mean, it was a ridiculous number. It's very, very common. So let's talk about what was studied here and what were the risks.
So this is a big study out of the UK, over 200,000 individuals, and looking at soda consumption and artificially sweetened beverages. And they followed them for over 10 years and found that those who were consuming the higher levels of artificially sweetened beverages had almost 20% higher rates of atrial fibrillation than those who didn't.
And what's atrial fibrillation?
AFib is a arrhythmia of the heart that is a high risk for causing strokes.
Okay. So here's what I want to do. You sent me a list, if we can put that up now, of the different types of artificial sweeteners, because we were talking about this and we were curious as to what it includes. Here's some of the most common ones, and I think we have 2 pages on this. We might, unless this might
Yeah, they're everywhere, right?
Yeah. So here we have these artificial sweeteners that we use all the time. And my question to you is, what came first, the heart issues, or did the sweeteners cause the condition?
So it's a great question. So a study like this is really only showing an association. We can't say from this study that it's a clear cause and effect relationship. It's just that people who are consuming more of these artificially sweetened beverages are also noted to have higher levels of AFib. So I really think the study is going to prompt some more research into figuring out, is it a direct effect of these sweeteners, or is there something else at play?
Okay, so my next question is, sometimes people don't want just water. So what should they be drinking instead? And you've brought us an example,
Yeah,
right?
I've got a little,
okay, so what are we drinking?
little demo for you. So for this, you have a lot of options. It's nice because on the market there's a lot more choices for beverages that have some flavor to them, but don't have the artificial sweeteners. So you may see the sparkling waters that have some flavor added. You may see those that have maybe just a little bit of natural fruit juice in them, enough to give it a little bit of an essence or a flavor.
Okay. When I think of that, I'm thinking like bubbly and LaCroix, right? They have those natural flavors of fruit, and there are no artificial sweeteners.
But they're still very low in sugar, maybe 20, 30 calories, but just enough to give it some flavor. And then I also want to point out the difference between just staying hydrated, what you're drinking on a daily basis to stay hydrated, which plain old water is probably best for that, and drinking something that tastes a little bit good, that you're drinking more for enjoyment, maybe with a meal. And really the higher volume, the most of what you're drinking really should be just pure water.
Okay, so what do we have here then? Because I was thinking, I mean, I don't want to name names, so the first thing I thought of was, when I saw your packet there, was like a Crystal Light, but that's not what that is, because that has artificial sweetener.
Well, actually what we're saying here with these is, if you've got something good and pure, just like a regular old pitcher of water, and you're going to pour in something like this, and it's got these, artificial sweeteners and artificial colors in them, you're now putting something into your body that really is kind of an additive or an extra, and you don't need to, right? So instead of doing something like this, an easier thing to do might be just to flavor the water with maybe some cucumber and mint, some berries, and just let it sit in the fridge overnight and absorb some of that flavor, and then just use that to give it a little bit of flavor instead, and that keeps it all natural and avoids this whole artificial sweetener issue.
So bottom line on this then, what do you want our viewers to know? Is this enough to convince us to maybe think twice?
I think it should cause a little bit of cause for concern. And for me, I think probably trying to avoid this. I also want to point out that there was a dose-dependent relationship, so meaning we really saw this as the amount of consumption went up for these artificial sweeteners. So, we mentioned 2 liters a day being like more than a can a day kind of a consumption. If you're going to do this once in a while, it's probably less of a concern. If this is one of the main ways that you stay hydrated and the main thing that you drink, it may be a cause for concern and maybe time to make some changes.
And maybe if you're at risk for heart issues as well, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of other risk factors for atrial fibrillation, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and staying on top of those and also following closely with your doctor if you're having palpitations or things like that. It's a very treatable condition. You can cut your risk of stroke by over 70% by getting on the right medicines if you identify that you actually have AFib, so it's always good to talk to your doctor about.
He will pass through the blaze of an industrial steel fan, shrink his body from 6 feet to 6 inches, and instantly teleport across the room. Jason is Zion's own Bill Blagg is bringing his mind-blowing magic to the Genesee Theater this Saturday. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
It's good to be here. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm a little nervous, but doing
a little nervous,
good.
Huh?
Yeah. So you perform about 200 shows a year. So what can people expect to see this weekend?
People can expect to see the impossible. We're going to be doing magic unlike magic that people have seen before.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, it's not the type of magic show where the lady comes out and dances on stage and jumps in and out
in
of
a
the
box,
boxes.
and then a rabbit comes out.
Right, and the magician stands there and the wind blows his
shirt.
Right, okay. It's going to be an interactive night, grand scale illusion, audience participation, comedy, close-up magic, parlor magic. I thought by chance you'd like to see just a little sample.
Let's see what you got.
All the big stuff's loaded up in the truck. We're in Elkhart tomorrow night, Genesee Theater Saturday night in Waukegan with the big show.
Okay.
So we're going to try something here.
Oh boy.
Now, a lot of people, when they see magicians, they immediately think of card tricks.
Yep.
Pick a card.
Right,
Like here comes the deck of cards. Pick a card. We're going to do something a little bit different.
Okay.
We're going to do something in our minds. Mind reading.
All right.
Do you believe in mind reading?
Sure.
You do. What I want you to do right now is I want you to go ahead and I want you just to think of any card inside of a deck of cards.
Any card.
Just any card. Don't tell me what it is.
Okay.
But I want you to think of a card inside of the deck.
Okay.
I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to actually name the card that you are thinking of.
Okay. And we didn't talk before this segment, by the way, at all.
I've made my prediction.
Yes.
It's on the board. Yeah, we haven't prearranged anything.
No.
We haven't set anything up.
Right.
That was better than the rehearsal earlier.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Here we go. I want you to focus on that card. Now I'm going to give you one opportunity. You can change that card to a different card, or you can keep that card.
I'm going to keep it.
You're going to keep it?
I'm going to keep it.
Okay, now keep in mind you had a fair chance to change or keep. So here we go.
Right.
The card that you are thinking of, the name of that card. This is interesting. This is the first time this has ever happened.
Okay.
It's actually your name. It's Brian.
It's related to it.
It's Brian. So think about this for a moment. I told you to think of a card, and I would name your card. So you're thinking of a card right now.
Yes.
I've already named your card Brian.
Okay.
That's the trick. I'm kidding. What is the actual card? What's the actual card you're thinking of?
Jack of clubs.
The Jack of clubs.
Uh-oh.
Brought a deck of cards in my back pocket.
Okay.
See, here's what most people don't understand about a deck of cards. See, each and every card inside of a deck of cards is completely unique. They're all different. They have their own personality, which means they also have their own names.
Okay.
That's right. So, for example, we have Sandy, Jim, Greg, Jen, Mike. Each and every card, a different personality. I asked you to think of a card, and I would name your card.
Right.
I named your card before
Brian,
you told me what your card was. As a matter of fact, I wrote my prediction on the back here that your card would be Brian. And what was your card again?
Jack of clubs.
The Jack of clubs.
No way.
We're going to go through here. We're going to look for the Jack of clubs right here inside of the pack. Ready?
How is this possible?
Brian, right there. So Saturday night, Genesee Theater, 7:30 p.m. We got tickets on sale. People can come check us out. Big grand scale illusion, close up, some mind reading, and some other surprises we have up our sleeves for the audience.
I love Jack Black. He is always a fun guy to chat with, especially for the Kung Fu Panda movies, which really allow him to sort of go into the recording booth and just let loose and have some fun. But if you didn't know, Jack is actually really great at something else. He is an incredible musician and is part of an amazing two-man rock group called Tenacious D. If you've never seen them perform live, you're missing out on something because they are incredible. So when I sat down with Jack and his Kung Fu Panda co-star Awkwafina, I wanted to know if any of his rock star life ever finds its way into his Kung Fu Panda performance.
As a Tenacious D fan, I'd love to know, how much do you have to sort of channel your inner musician, your inner Tenacious D, as you're performing as Po?
I don't channel any Tenacious D in Kung Fu Panda, but it does accidentally seep through my pores because I am Tenacious D and I am Po. So those two are going to automatically share a little DNA.
Right. What does that moment look like when it happens?
It looks a little bit like this. You ready for this? Get ready, Chi-Town. Get ready, Shiki G. Okay. It feels and looks
Whoa, yeah.
like a double kick to the chops. Ow, I bit my tongue a little bit there.
You bit your tongue when you were kicking?
When they chisel my Emmy for Best Interview in Chicago, be sure it's Jack Black, Awkwafina. Make sure they get that name right on my Emmy
And he's
statue.
going to do that again.
Look, that was gold.
That was why are we even
You wanna
talking
hit it
anymore?
again? You wanna
I
hit it
feel
one
like
more time?
the interview's done. You can't top that
Do you
double
want to
kick.
hit it one more time?
Hit me, baby, 3 more times.
Whoa, that was a combo.
That was kick.
Dang, look that.
And it's cocked and ready to go again.
It's like I mean, do you have to get a license for that thing?
I mean, clearly
My
not,
God.
dude.
Well,
that's pretty much it.
More than I've extended my leg in a
Wow.
very,
Me
very
too.
long
You
time.
got range, dude.
Thank you.
You still got it.
I got kicks.
You got kicks.
You got a lot of
as
heat.
the kids say.
This morning, we are heating up the kitchen with the Highland Park Fire Department. I hope you're hungry. Frankie, what are we going to be making today?
Today we're going to be making my famous chicken parm.
So what makes it so famous?
What makes it so famous is my secret ingredient, and then I've just been making it for the last 3 years, and the guys just seem to love it.
We have put salt and pepper on the eggs, the flour, and the Italian breadcrumbs.
But we can't forget the garlic salt, so we're going to put just a little bit of garlic salt there. And we use garlic salt on basically everything.
So I just finished my last chicken breast. What is next on the itinerary?
Well, we could start making our sauce and get that all simmered down.
So you've got 101 Dalmatians in the firehouse, not in this firehouse, though. We've got 101 spices that go into this special marinara sauce. Let's go.
All right, perfect. We're going to start with let's do black pepper. Yep, perfect. Crushed red pepper. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Parmesan cheese. Yep, it's right there. Nice, perfect amount. Garlic salt. We'll do salt. There we go. Italian. Yeah, put a lot of that. There we go. There we go. A little bit of oregano.
Oops.
Whoa!
Never mind me.
Oh my God, there we go. All right, now let's do the special ingredient. Taste it.
I'm not going to taste it because I
No?
don't trust you yet,
Oh
Frankie.
my God.
I got to eat your food first. Okay,
Yep,
is that enough?
there we go. Keep going, keep going. Perfect, perfect.
It's sugar.
This is my mom's recipe. She's been making forever, and I just copied her. Basically, just perfected it myself by just taste and go, taste and go. It's never the same. You always put it in away from you so you don't get splashed with oil.
While we wait for that to bake, the food isn't the only thing that makes this fire station unique.
This has always had a very tight connection to the community. People stop by here, they're going to Ravinia Festival, they stop in. A lot of our firefighters will sit out front and greet people. It's been a great community connection that we've always had.
Why did the chicken cross the road? Come up to the kitchen to find out.
Oh, that's perfect.
Bon appetit.
Yeah,
Frankie's
chicken
famous
parm.
chicken parm.
Perfect kick of heat with the sauce.
I've been on a job a long time. This is one of the best I've had.
Bunch of different tastes and flavors. It's just the best Parmesan chicken I've ever had.
It would definitely make Mama Gulo proud. Frankie did a great job.
So this is a new fire station, the Ravinia Fire Station in Highland Park. And get this, they actually found cow bones as they were digging to build it. So a little history there. We posted the recipe to Highland Park Fire Department's chicken parm on our website, fox32chicago.com, under the Good Day Chicago tab.
He knew what he was doing. You had the right mix of the red pepper flakes, a little bit of sweetness with the sugar. I like that sauce.
Thanks for watching the Fox 32 Chicago Week in Review. See you back here next week.
Blockbuster reveals. Incredible costumes and show-stopping performances.
Sucker, dream crusher, I love!
It's non-stop masked mania.
I'm taking everyone down.
TV's most cutthroat competition.
The trophy is mine! This queen has arrived at the Masked Singer!
It's time to SmackDown. The Masked Singer, all new Wednesdays on Fox and watch anytime on Hulu.